Player Patagonia here at Colchester Zoo. My name's Kate. I'll be telling you all about our beautiful Patagonian sea lions. Joining me out here on the beach is my colleague, also called Kate, and she has brought out two lovely young ladies. So closest to me, we have Sydney, and to the far side, we have Atlanta. Now, of course, during today's display, we're not only going to tell you about our sea lions here at the zoo, but we're going to tell you all about their lives out there in South America as well. But we're going to start off by telling you and showing you the most important reason we train not only our sea lions, but all of the animals here at Colchester Zoo, and that is, of course, for husbandry. It means that we can get nice and close to each and every one of our 5 young ladies here at the zoo, and we can carry out the most basic of everyday health checks. So you'll notice at the moment, Kate's just stroking the sea lions over their bodies. Now, this isn't anything therapeutic. The reason that we stroke our sea lions is so we can feel for any lumps or bumps, and of course this may be an indication of something going on internally with the animal. Kate's also having a quick look under our sea lions' flippers. And just like cats and dogs, these girls walk on all fours. 2 big front flippers, 2 smaller hind flippers. So it is quite easy for them to get cuts, scratches, grazes, or any sorts of injuries to the undersides of those flippers. Very important that we check these areas daily so we can treat any problems that may be occurring. Now, we can also check our sea lions' eyes and ears. Now, our girls are also trained to accept eye drops. So you can see, working with the sea lions' cooperation, we can ask them to turn their head to the left and to the right-hand side. This gives us a nice close look at the eyes and the ears, but they're trained to keep their head nice and flat, keep their eye open, and to stay nice and still while we pop drops onto the eyes. So, of course, if we do need to treat them for any problems, they're going to benefit from this rather than shaking the head, the drops running off down the side of the face, and, of course, them wasting the medication. So we can ensure that we're working along with the sea lions and, of course, making sure that if we do ever need to administer any medication, it's in a stress-free manner. And last but not least, Kate's having a look inside the sea lions' mouths. Now, our girls eat, for this particular time of year, around 4 to 6 kilos of fish each per day. If you're ever lucky enough to have a look inside of a sea lion's mouth, you may well notice that they don't have shiny white teeth like you and me. Instead, the front teeth are quite brown, and towards the back of the mouth, they actually go quite black in colour. Now, this is perfectly fine. It doesn't mean they have poor dental hygiene. They just don't have the white enamel such as we do. But again, checking inside their teeth, crucial part of their daily routine, or their mouth, sorry, so that we can check the condition of the teeth, make sure there's no wobbly or chipped teeth, and also make sure that they haven't got any sores or ulcers inside the mouth. So that's the most important reason we train the animals here at the zoo. Of course, we also need to make sure that we're keeping them physically fit and active. So we can do this by playing games with them. Now, Kate's playing a game with the sea lions at the moment called toy retrieval. So what she's been asking the sea lions to do is go into the water and retrieve a few toys that she's already thrown in. And the way in which she's been asking the sea lions to do this, in case you didn't notice, was by tapping her thigh. Every time Kate tapped her thigh twice, this was a signal telling the sea lions what she would like them to do next. Much in the same way that we use signals. If I tap my finger to my wrist, you probably understand I'm asking you for the time, and you'd respond by telling me. When Kate taps her thigh twice, she's asking the sea lion, go into the water, see what you can find to bring back. Now, I'm sure you can understand here that this particular game isn't just physically challenging for the sea lions, but it's keeping them mentally stimulated as well. In the case of Sydney here, she knows well over 40 different behaviours. Each of those behaviours is linked with a signal or a cue. So when Kate provides Sydney with a signal, she has to think about what that particular signal means and what she needs to do with the correct response. And every time they do the behaviour correctly, as I'm sure you're seeing, Kate reaches into that bucket and she gives our girls some nice tasty fish. This is positive reinforcement. This is how we train all of the animals here at the zoo, rewarding and reinforcing the good behaviour, of course encouraging the likelihood it will occur again in the future. Now, as promised, we're also going to say a little bit about their lives out there in the wild. We're going to start off with where in fact the name sea lion comes from, because it's quite unusual. Well, there's a couple of reasons. Sydney's going to start off by telling you the first one. Sydney? Lovely. So you can tell that when it comes to vocalising, rather than making that honking sound, true of the Californian sea lion, our girls here actually roar. And that roar is a bit like a lion's roar, hence why they're called the sea lion. Another reason, in some species, the males have a nice big mane of fur around their neck. Of course, looks quite similar to a lion's mane. But a true reason they're called sea lions really is because they are the lions of the sea. They're ferocious predators. They eat a hugely varied diet. They're incredibly fast swimmers, reaching speeds of around 25 miles per hour, and of course they've got a very strong jaw and lots of powerful teeth. So ferocious predators, and our girls have actually gone out fishing this afternoon, and they're going to show you some of the things their diet would consist of in the wild. So starting off, they've both brought back some tasty fish. Now out there in South America, they would eat things such as anchovies, mackerel, herring, so fish would be a large and bulky part of their diet. But they don't just stop there. They've gone out to see what other tasty morsels they can find from our pool. Making her way back out, first of all, we have got Sydney, and Sydney's found herself a tasty crab. And again, crustaceans would be another part of their diet. And Atlanta has struck gold this afternoon because she's actually found herself an octopus. And again, squid and octopus are the things they would eat in the wild. But you're probably thinking that's not very lion-like. Well, in the case of the Patagonian sea lions, they don't just stop there. They would also eat penguins, pelicans, and even other marine mammals. And this can often come in the form of small seals and their pups. So, bearing that in mind, they are definitely worthy the title, the Lion of the Sea. Unlike the lions of the land, of course, from which they get their name, they're not at the very top of the food chain. So whilst they're a predator, they're also a prey animal as well. Now when it comes to their predators, there's two in particular, and Atlanta is demonstrating the first of those predators for you now, which I'm sure you've all guessed is of course a shark impression. So this is Atlanta's impression of not just any shark, but of course the great white shark, another ferocious, very fast swimmer, and of course lots of terrifyingly sharp teeth. So that's one of their predators out there in the wild. The second, Sydney's going to do an impression of. Now this is not necessarily an animal that would spring immediately to mind. This is a slightly larger animal. It's black and white, and every year people go all the way to SeaWorld to have a look at these beautiful creatures, and this is Sydney's impression of the killer whale. So there we go. Now the name is slightly misleading because the killer whale is not a whale at all. It's in fact the largest member of the dolphin family, measuring up to about 10 metres in length. These animals were once known as whale killers because in the wild they do eat Patagonian sea lions, they also eat larger whales as well. Now our beautiful young ladies are going to demonstrate to you now how they would avoid these predators. You've already seen them moving through the water using those big powerful front flippers. They can swim at speeds of around 25 miles per hour. If they're unable to outswim that predator, they will attempt to confuse it. And the way in which they do this is using a behaviour known as porpoising. Now this is where the sea lions will jump in and out of the water, twisting and turning as they go. Hopefully, if you combine this movement with the bubbles and the splashes that they're creating, any shark or killer whale that is pursuing them will, fingers crossed, become confused, give up and go and look elsewhere for an easier meal. Now porpoising does have a second benefit as well. You have to remember that these girls are marine mammals, and the key part here is mammal. They can't breathe under the water, they don't have gills, they can hold their breath for an incredibly long time when they're resting, but of course if they're moving quickly through the water, they're going to be using the oxygen in their blood a lot more quickly. This means they need to come to the surface more frequently, and porpoising allows them the opportunity to do so without having to stop. Every time they break the water, they can grab a quick breath, continue their escape, as I say, without having to stop. Now that's their first line of defence when it comes to escaping from their predator. If they can't outswim them, they'll try to confuse them. If they're unable to confuse that predator, perhaps it's not giving up, they're porpoising as fast as they possibly can, they do have one rather extreme last resort. And this is really something they will leave until the very last moment, just as that predator is about to take a bite out of them. Sydney's going to demonstrate this lovely behaviour for you. Here at Colchester Zoo we call this the high jump, but once again this is a natural behaviour, a powerful behaviour, where using those big front flippers, the sea lions are able to throw themselves 2.5–3 metres out of the water and into the air. Now if you watch Sydney very closely, if you imagine you're a shark or a killer whale, as she leaves the water, she's disappeared from your sight. As that predator continues to swim forward, Sydney comes crashing down on top of you, and weighing in at around 100 to 150 kilos. That's certainly enough to give you a bit of a headache and give Sydney a chance to swim away to safety. That's told you quite a bit about our two beautiful young ladies here at the zoo. They are both available for adoption, so if they've taken your fancy, closest to me we have Sydney, and just making her way in the water we have Atlanta. If you would like to adopt them, head on over to Guest Services. They can answer any questions you may have. But for now, from myself, Super Sid, Kate and Atlanta, who's about to make a bit of a splash, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day here with us at Colchester Zoo.